How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Some idea.
I am not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that?
People dislike me because I am not completely like them. I am trying to do with my life something which few people try to do, and this influences my thinking and consequently my action.
What is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.
is the end. There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final time. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final
Who the fuck is Karlyn? She's just some sweet lady. She's like in a knitting. She does like a knitting stream. She's like a knitting YouTuber. She does knitting.
What up, everyone? Happy Thursday. We got a big day today because not only are we doing this stream at 5 p.m., we are also doing a spy stream later. And I know that some of you were already waiting in the spy stream because you confused it. No, we're not doing spy stream for another hour and a half. Relax. But we do have a lot to talk about between now and then. For the spy stream later, guys, we are going to be going inside a live organizing call with the teachers unions. I'm making this a public spy stream because I think there's going to be a lot of people on this call and I don't think I'm going to get in trouble for streaming it. So we are going to be doing a public spy stream that everyone can attend on the channel starting around 6:45 in about an hour and a half. So if you want to see what the teachers unions have planned for Labor Day, come out. You can see it. It's actually not even just the teachers unions. Right before I went live, I got the speaker list for the spy stream in my email. It was very considerate of them. And so Randy Weingarten is going to be speaking tonight, but also speaking tonight is Liz Schuler, the president of the AFL-CIO. And a couple other people as well. That crazy woman that looks like the Joker with like one eyebrow is going to be hosting. Everyone loves you guys know who I'm talking about, right? The woman that looks like she's a Batman villain with the big afro who has one eyebrow and one black eye and one eye with no eyebrow and no eye makeup. And this is like her regular thing. She's good. Yep. The one eyebrow lady. Yep. Everyone knows who she is. Yep. So that is what we're going to be doing in about an hour and a half, but we do have some time to kill between now and then. And so I found a video. Which one? This video was recommended to me from our new best friend, Dean Spade. I've been covering Dean for a while on the channel. Dean is not new to the channel, but to be honest, I feel like maybe we haven't listened to enough of Dean Spade, and YouTube seems to agree, because YouTube is now recommending me all these crazy videos from Dean Spade. Dean Spade is the queer Marxist we watched yesterday. And this is a talk that them gave at NYU School of Law a couple months ago. 3 months ago, to be exact. The NYU School of Law. And the lecture is called No Prisons, No Border, No Cops, No State. Isn't that exactly what we want people to be learning at the NYU School of Law. Dan, only literal retards think I'm a Marxist. You had to wait for 5 minutes to subscribe to the channel to ask me that. Maybe in the time that you were... Dan, let me give you a piece of advice. We do deep dive research on this channel, so you had to wait 5 minutes to subscribe to the channel before you were allowed to chat in. In that time, Dan, you could have read a bio on the channel. You could have read the description of the video that you're commenting on. You could have gone to any of my websites and answered your own question. Like, are you competent enough to be here? Are you smart enough to be here? Like, the bar is not high, Dan. It's really not. It's really not. Literally retarded. Literally retarded. You're going to have to redeem yourself for that one, bro. We're going to kick you out because only smart people come to my channel. There are no stupid people allowed here, okay? So we're going to be watching this lecture. This lecture is about 50 minutes long, so I thought it would be a good time slot. Just so you know, I almost listened to that book you wanted me to listen to today, but I thought it was going to be too long given the time constraints. We are going to listen to that book. I have it saved and all that stuff, so we are going to listen to the book that you keep trying to get us to listen to. We're just not going to do it today because we don't have enough time to do it justice, all right? So this is what we're going to be watching today. But before we get into it, I have a couple orders of business that I want to tell you guys about. So I was doing some research last night because I was working on some stuff for the Center of Left-Wing Studies. The Center for Left-Wing Studies is my nonprofit where we are trying to map out the modern activist left and basically get a handle on the size of the problem and the scope of the problem that we are dealing with the radical far left. I want to thank everyone who has signed up for to be a volunteer recently for the Center for Left-Wing Studies. We basically have a massive challenge in front of us because we are trying to take all the data that exists about the left and put it into a usable form so that we can figure out what is the extent of the organizational network the left has built out? How are they working with each other? How are they organizing with each other? Where are they located? We're trying to do a whole bunch of research and archival projects that is essentially a massive data management challenge and a massive data input challenge, to be really honest about it. I've been very blessed in that I have many volunteers who have signed up recently with the Center for Left-Wing Studies. If you want to learn more about that, go to leftwingstudies.com, click on volunteer, and here's the tricky part. You have to read the instructions. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I need to make sure you are capable of basic thought if you're going to volunteer for my website. You have to read the instructions and follow the instructions explicitly as I have written them. Okay, so that is the challenge. That is the IQ test if you want to come and help us out. But the reason I bring this up is that as a part of the research I was doing for the Center for Left-Wing Studies, I basically started on Dean Spade's website. And from Dean Spade's website, I started following links from Dean Spade's website into all these different socialist organizations. And Dean Spade has a lot of links on them's website that goes out to different socialist organizations and stuff like that. And so when I was following all the links on Dean Spade's website, hang on, let me get my screen set up here the way I want it so you guys can see your chats on the screen. There you go. I found Dean Spade, when they were on a book tour, did a talk called Dismantle the Romance Myth. And so Dean Spade did a talk with this organization, but this organization is called the Fireweed Collective. We always know anytime we see the word collective, that's going to be a socialist and Marxist organization. But what is this about? The Fireweed Collective. Okay, so I kind of clicked around a little bit and I was looking at some stuff, and then I found this button for webinars and workshops. This is an organization that does all sorts of webinars and trainings, and they have been blessed, or we have been blessed enough rather, to find their Vimeo channel. Vimeo is like the bastion of leftist content. I'm telling you guys, you guys think there's a lot of leftist content on YouTube? If you can find a leftist organization's Vimeo channel, you just wait for the amount of crazy shit you're going to find. I always find the craziest stuff over on Vimeo. So you got to keep an eye out for that. I don't know what it is about it, but it is Vimeo. Vimeo is Kino content. But look at this. Look at this massive amount of webinars that these people have over on Vimeo. Check this out. This is Dean Spade's lecture that they gave right there. That's over on Vimeo. They've got, let's see. Hang on, I'm trying to get the title to come up. This is disability justice. Coming off of psych meds. They've got a whole series on the romance thing. We'll have to do a Valentine's Day special on that. They literally have a whole series on the romance. But capitalism is killing me. What is it killing you with? Just capitalism is killing me. Roundtable discussions, psychiatry and abolition. They've got all sorts of emotional first aid, street therapy, dealing with triggers. This is just, I mean, come on. Come on. Yeah, Vimeo is the secret spot. Vimeo is the best. Vimeo is the BitChute of the left. Yeah, we should. Well, speaking of which, actually, you know what's funny? Is, you know how I know our fat ass stalker was watching the channel yesterday? Look at this. Even my enemies, even the shut-in fat-ass 500-pound bitch that watches every single thing I say and do, even they are starting to advertise my work, because the fat-ass stalker that literally watches my stream every single day, this woman has been stalking me for almost 5 years now. Every day of her life, she thinks about me. She obsesses about me. She's probably watching right now. Everyone say hi, fat-ass, in the chat, because she's probably watching right now. And so she was watching yesterday, as she does every day, because she's an obsessive narcissistic cunt that cannot get her mind off of me no matter how much she tries. She was watching yesterday when I was talking about the Center for Left-Wing Studies, and apparently yesterday I said something to the effect of, I just need to find someone with a rich uncle. Can you imagine what I could do with $5 million? And I'm just like, yes, fat ass. Yeah, exactly. I need to find one person with a rich uncle to fund the Center for Left-Wing Studies perpetually. Can you imagine the amount of intelligence that I could gather if I could hire a team with like $5 million? Can you imagine how much information we could put together in like a single year? We could map out almost the entire fucking far left if I had that amount of manpower. Because the thing is, the Center for Left-Wing Studies is a data management problem. It's a data input and a data management problem. In order to do what I need to do, I need people inputting data. I need people that I have trained that understand the far left to input data into my system that I've already built so that we can map all this out. And in order for me to get as many people as I need a sugar daddy. I need a rich donor. I need a big fuck off grant. And I'm not going to be ashamed to admit it. If you have a rich uncle and that rich uncle is like, can I donate $5 million to an amazing nonprofit that's really going to have a lot of impact in the world? Yes. Actually, yeah. Yeah, you can, because the Center for Left-Wing Studies is a nonprofit organization. It is a tax-deductible donation. And so if you have a rich uncle, send them to my nonprofit and say, here's the thing you want to fund. And if fat-ass Jill has a problem with that, well, that's just tough shit, bitch. No one cares what your opinion is. But really, the reason she was really watching is that she's obsessed with me, and she's tattling to James that I showed one of James's tweets on the screen. She's tattling and all that stuff. And also, I mean, just like every day. Anyway, I don't really want to talk about that bitch anymore. I don't really want to talk about her anymore. But I'm just saying that my haters are even advertising my work. So maybe someone will see fat ass Jill's tweet, and they'll go, yeah, that actually sounds like a really good idea to give money to. And if you want to do that, you can do that by going to leftwingstudies.com. You can make a tax-deductible donation. Just click on the give link. You will find information there. And just so people are aware, so I have a fiscal sponsor that is allowing me to do the nonprofit stuff. Essentially, I'm working with a 501c3 organization, and they are taking donations on my behalf. The reason that I set up the nonprofit in this way is, quite frankly, I don't want to have a board of directors, and so I can actually have a nonprofit without having a board of directors that I sign over control to by working with an outside 501c3 organization. There's a whole structure that I have to follow because we are doing tax deductible donations. But just so you guys know, people have been asking me about this. My fiscal sponsor is switching to a new donation system, and I'm going to be able to take Bitcoin as donation. People have been asking about that. I couldn't do that up until, well, I'm going to be able to do it soon. So there's going to be more ways to donate. If you're like if you are a Bitcoin millionaire, you are going to be able to donate that Bitcoin to the Center for Left-Wing Studies within the next month or so. So that's pretty rad, and that's awesome. And so you can find out more information over there. Also, I also went back and was looking at this Paper Tiger thing, because I was like, this Paper Tiger public to access collective thing that we watched the other day, this is where we found that amazing queer activism webinar from the 90s, or the TV show. And I was kind of looking at their website, and do you know what I realized? They have all their stuff listed by category. I don't know why I didn't see this before. It's so simple. And so if we go into any of these categories, like consumerism, corporations, and capitalism, we can actually find all of their old documentaries and webinars. This is all like very socialist stuff. I love this stuff. Look at this. So we can go into infiltrating the underground, the corporatization of radical culture. Like, we have to watch that. And these are all, again, these are all videos that are on Vimeo. If we go in here, pretty sure, well, it should be here. Oh, maybe we can't. Okay, we're going to be able to find stuff based on it being on this website. Anyway, so I basically went into a deep dive rabbit hole last night and found all this crazy leftist content that we have to watch. We are in a perpetual state of being where we have way more content that we can ever watch on this channel, which is both a blessing and a curse, but it's also very, very exciting. If you guys want to support the work I'm doing, the very best way to do so is by heading over to my Substack. That is Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. I am not a Christian, and we do not proselytize here, Sarah. Thank you. No proselytization allowed, please. I don't think I'm asking too much, but you never know. Anyway, everyone can donate to my Substack. You can be a Christian and donate to my Substack if you want to. You can also be a non-Christian and donate to my Substack, because we don't force, unlike the Christians who come into my chat just out of nowhere to say they're going to pray for me and damn me to hell or whatever. I don't actually care what your religion is. What I care about on this channel is, do you care about learning about the radical revolutionary far left or not? That is like literally it. If you want to learn about the far left, you are welcome here. Just don't be a dick. No whining. Don't fuck up my chat. Don't cause a disruption. Don't spam it with irrelevant bullshit. I'm not asking too much. Anyway, if you want to support the work I'm doing, the very best way to do so is by heading over to my Substack. I am completely 100% independently funded by people just like you. You can sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. I've loaded a bunch of new clips over onto the Substack, so we've gotten some great clips lately, including yesterday. If you missed the clip we got yesterday about, it was again Dean Spade and another college professor talking about basically offing people. Like, literally, they were talking about using violence to eliminate people that were getting in the way of their communist plans. I've uploaded that clip to the Substack. I've uploaded it to the YouTube channel. I put it on Twitter as well. Make sure you watch that clip, because it's kind of like, I don't understand why people don't care about this stuff. I really don't. It's like conservatives are reading about the left all day, every day. And then I'm like, hey, conservatives, here's a clip where leftists are literally saying they're going to kill you. Because that's what this clip says. This clip says, we are going to kill you. Not explicitly, but it's talking about eliminating people through violence. What do you think they mean when they say they are going to use violence to eliminate people? I just don't know how much more clear the left can be about what their plans are. This was a lecture that was given to a college class at the University of California, Riverside, a couple years ago. This clip is almost 2 years old. And it's just like, if I can't get conservatives to pay attention when the left is literally saying we're going to eliminate you using violence, I just don't know what to do with these people, man. It's like, you can't wake these people up. All they want is their clickbait bullshit. That's like all they care about. All they want is their talking points fed, and they want to be mindless drones that just watches the same thing, and they're like, yes, own the libs, dunk on the libs over and over and over again. And then they get a video of the libs literally, these are not liberals, these are communists, obviously. Then they get a clip of communists literally saying they're going to kill you, and they're like, whatever. I don't like Karlyn because she's not a Christian. Couldn't be more clear. But do we ask the Catholic father who interviewed Karlyn for forgiveness and to pray for us? You know, listen, the Catholic priest that interviewed me, he didn't try to proselytize to me. This is the ironic thing, is like, that Catholic priest, Father Mateague, who we're going to be very respectful to because he's having me on his show again, he didn't try to proselytize to me. He knows I'm not a Christian. He didn't try to convert me to Catholicism. Yeah, priest W. And actually, the conversation that I had with that priest was one of the best conversations I've had about my work with, like, anyone. And it wasn't about religion at all, and there was no damning to hell, and there was none of that. There was no foolishness. I was perfectly polite. I didn't even swear. I was on my best behavior when I was talking to the priest. You know, W Catholic priest, man. W priest. L all the Christians who come into my chat to try to convert me for no good reason. But W priest. Okay? Let's see. What else do I have? Oh! I have another YouTube channel now. You guys should all go subscribe to it. Now, this is a YouTube channel specifically for clips that we have, and how this YouTube channel started is, honestly, I just wanted to grab the handle to make sure no one else had it. But then Reagan and I were talking, and Reagan recently got a Twitter account banned, allegedly for impersonating me, although I flat out told Twitter she wasn't impersonating me, but Twitter apparently disagreed with me. And so Twitter recently banned one of Reagan's Twitter accounts, which is really stupid. But Reagan and I had a conversation after that, and we were like, maybe we should be putting all the clips you're putting on that Twitter account onto a backup YouTube channel. And I was like, hang on, I have a backup YouTube channel. It is youtube.com/@decodetheleft. And so Reagan has started uploading her clips that she makes, and she does a wonderful job with clips, guys. If you don't want to be on Twitter, that's fine. I totally understand. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, though, because Reagan has been pumping out these clips. There's a whole bunch of them posted. And so this is going to be a place where you're going to be getting clips of my work with explainer videos, stuff like that. I also may occasionally use this for archival purposes, just to have videos that we're watching stored somewhere so that I know where they are. And so make sure you subscribe to that. I did just put the link in the chat. And you can just find it by going to Decode the Left, and we'll be uploading clips to that, and it'll be awesome. Is that it? Is that all I have? Yes. That is all I have. All right, let's get into our video, shall we? Oh! I forgot about this. I have to tell you guys this. So I got this recommendation when I was looking for videos, and it's that Josh Slocum asshole who's pretending to be a mental health expert. And as you guys know, Josh Slocum is a former funeral director who pretends to be a mental health expert. He has something called the Disaffected Podcast, in which he pretends to understand narcissistic personality disorder and cluster B personality disorder, and he diagnoses everyone and their mother with having serious personality disorders based on the fact that he doesn't like them, because that's really the only criteria that matters to psychos like this. It's like, I don't like you, and so I'm going to diagnose you with a mental health disorder. Yeah, see, I kind of wondered the same thing, Reagan. I actually got this recommended to me on my homepage, and I was like, that asshole put me in the thumbnail again. This is like the third time he has put me in a thumbnail on his YouTube channel about having a personality disorder. Now, as a reminder, one of the most overt times that Josh Slocum has ever talked about me on his YouTube channel, Josh Slocum literally did an entire episode about me after my dog died. You guys remember a couple months back, I lost my dog. I'm still really upset about this. I'm like, oh God, I can't even talk about my dog without crying, because I miss my dog so much. Well, the day my dog died, Josh Slocum decided to tweet out making fun of the fact that my dog died. And then when I pointed out to everyone that Josh Slocum, who is claiming to be a mental health expert, is literally harassing me on Twitter, making fun of the fact that my dog died, Josh Slocum then decided to do an entire episode about how I couldn't have possibly been upset when my dog died because I'm a narcissist. This is a person that has never spoken to me in real life, doing an entire episode about basically harassing me when my dog died, which is, to me, one of the most devastating things that I've experienced. I know it's just a dog, and I know people think that, but, like, I loved my dog so much. Anyway, this is what so-called mental health experts on the internet do. They literally make entire shows calling someone a narcissist and saying they can't be upset when their dog died because they're a narcissist. And he has apparently now seen fit to put me in another one of his thumbnails about borderline personality disorder because, according to him, I'm a cluster B narcissist and sociopath and yada, 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 whatever, whatever, whatever. So maybe, I'm just saying, guys, maybe have some discernment on the internet about who you listen to for mental health advice, because in my experience, the people that are giving out mental health advice are usually some of the most reprehensible people. They're like, I can't imagine someone sinking any lower than harassing someone over the death of my dog and then doing a whole episode about how I obviously wasn't really upset when my dog died, because I've got a fucking personality disorder, according to him, or something. Yeah, it does kind of sound like projection. In fact, you want to see his current Twitter profile? You guys got to see this. And then we'll get into the episode. This is the shit that I have to deal with over on the internet, though. Like, I mean, people are like, why do you even talk about this? Well, because this is actually the shit that I have to deal with on the internet, like, all the time. And this is the shit that I have to deal with from people who claim to be against leftism, but this is how they act. So this is Josh Slocum's current Twitter profile photo. This is the person saying that that I have that I can't possibly be upset about the death of my dog because I have a mental health disorder. This is the person making the diagnosis. So that's what I have to deal with on the internet. Fun times. Whatever. We're not going to spend too much time on him. Anyway, I just thought you guys would be amused by that because I was like, this was literally on my homepage when I logged into this YouTube channel to look for videos today, and I was like, huh, that kind of looks like me, doesn't it? Oh, wow. Josh Slocum is continuing his harassment campaign because, you know, I think we can all kind of make guesses about why he's doing this. And it's not because I have a serious personality disorder. I don't have a personality disorder. But there are reasons that he wants you to think I do. Anyway, that's that. Let's get into our episode. The good stuff. Guys, please make sure you mount the like button for me. Please make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you are not already. And we do streaming Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Tomorrow is going to be happy hour. We're going to watch some drama content. Probably going to watch Fuentes. Probably going to do like Nick Fuentes part 2 of like the Tucker takedown. We watched part 1 last week. We'll probably do part 2 tomorrow. Maybe something else will come up. But we do Socialism Saturdays on Saturdays at 6 p.m. I'm streaming 6 days a week doing different content, mostly focused on leftism and stuff like that. But occasionally we do other stuff too. And let's get into it. We are watching a lecture by Dean Spade. Dean Spade is a longtime queer Marxist activist and a professor at Seattle University Law School. And this is a lecture that they them gave at NYU School of Law a couple months ago. So let's see what happened.
Embarrassing. And also, if I could like tell my 19-year-old self that someone as brilliant as you would ever read anything I wrote, I would be so moved. It's such an honor to be read by you. Thank you. So grateful to Naomi and Zach and Hamza and Kiana and all the people who have like welcomed me here and Buell and worked on these events. Really, really grateful. Really delightful to be part of this conversation. I'm gonna put down my watch so I can see so I can make sure I don't talk for too long. And Sylvia, obviously, all the organizers on the committee, really grateful. And I just want to pick up, where Naomi gave us a land acknowledgement that we're on Lenape land, and just really encourage us to not have that be a formal part of the beginning of the event, but actually a way that we think about everything that happens in the rest of the conversation. It's central to my thinking about this question, so I hope we can tie that in. Any institution we're talking about in a law school or in any conversation about legal and government institutions, in our context, is about colonial institutions, and that should shape how we think about how we're going to change them, what we're going to do with people who are being, hurt by them.
Well, hey, Natalie. It's interesting seeing you here.
Like, how are we going to change that?
Welcome back, Natalie.
Tonight I want to share like some really broad sweeping claims about that debate that Nicole was just mentioning, right? This question about how abolitionists should regard the state. So this is like, I'm trying to figure out whether there's a way to do this quick and dirty. And so really this is like that attempt. And it's just based on conversations I have with people who are like, we live in a context where anti-state thinking and work has been like severely and brutally suppressed and repressed for hundreds.
It's okay. It's all right. You had a moment, but we got it together. You got it. I'm glad you're back. I was upset, Natalie. I was upset when I saw. I'm not going to say what happened. I don't want other people to give. I was upset. Okay, but I didn't. We're back. We don't need to relitigate why. You might not agree with some of the things I say. That's all right. You're allowed to not agree. But I'm glad we're back, is all I'm saying. Natalie's been a follower of mine for a long time, and so like people don't know, don't worry about it, okay? It's no big deal. Anyway, the reason I paused the video is I wanted to just make sure people understand. So Dean Spade is going to be talking about the state a lot in this video. What Dean Spade means when they say the state is the capitalist state, the United States government, the capitalist constitution, the United States Constitution. This is what people get wrong about socialists. Socialists are like, people try to say, okay, I'm flubbing this horribly. Essentially, when they're saying the state, what they're talking about is abolishing capitalism. They're not talking about having no governance model. They're talking about abolishing capitalism and replacing capitalism with their form of governance, which they believe is going to be more quote-unquote democratic because it's going to be more like direct representation by the people. So they are not opposed to having like a governance type structure. What they are opposed to is the capitalist U.S. government and the capitalist constitution. All right? So that's what he means, them means when they're saying the state.
Hundreds of years. So it's really hard to find out about it. And most of us don't know anything about it. And there's a default assumption that we're trying to like get our people elected and run the colonial government. And that I think is a terrible idea for all the reasons I'm about to say. So this is just like why that's important for abolitionists and like what some of my conversations about that look like what people come back with and then how I answer that. That's all this is. And I can't wait to hear what lands on you all and what doesn't and what you think about it. So I'm coming to this conversation, especially from the work we've been doing, particularly since June 2020, on when the kind of abolitionism to some degree mainstreamed, and a lot more people got involved in what we call defund campaigns in their local jurisdictions, in their cities and counties, and that is like trying to reduce the police budgets, or at least stop their expansion because they've expanded every year that you've been alive. And that I've been alive, trying to reduce the actual.
The other vocab word that people need to know is Dean Spade is going to say abolition, abolition, abolition. Abolition in this case refers to the abolition of the prison industrial complex, because the left believes that the police and the prison industrial complex are basically manifestations of capitalism. They believe the police are the managers and the protectors of private property, which is what capitalism is defined as, private property ownership. And so they believe in the complete abolition and elimination of the police and of prisons. So that's what they're talking about when they say abolition.
Number of cops on the streets, trying to stop the adoption of new surveillance technologies by the police is often what the campaigns look like. Trying to move various services like parking enforcement or emergency response out of the police department. There's a lot of pieces to it, but we call all of that often like defund work, or that's being done by people who are trying to defund the police, shrink it in every way, get them off the streets, take the weapons out of their hands. And these experiments are revealing a lot of important tensions about how abolitionists regard the state. Like when we talk about this often as a divest invest structure, like, stop putting the money towards the cops and put it towards what people need, like housing, childcare, healthcare. Like that's kind of the way the way the talking points go. Makes perfect sense. Stop doing everything that hurts people when people don't have all the basic things they need. if we're supposed to be safer, what would make us safer as being housed, having childcare, healthcare, et cetera. It's like very simple. But one of the dilemmas of it is like, do we actually think the government should be how we get that stuff? You know, like, should the government be how we get housing, childcare, and healthcare? Do we think that they do a good job with that?
Again, when they them says the government, they mean the capitalist U.S. government. They don't mean, they are not opposed to having their own governance model.
Also, can they provide those services justly? What does the history of social welfare tell us about that? What does the history of living under colonial governments tell us about that?
Colonial government means capitalist government.
Is the United States itself a legitimate means for organizing care and infrastructure?
Bing.
And if, as I believe it's not,
oh!
Are there other ways to organize care and infrastructure? How else?
What did I say? When Dean Spade is talking about the state, he's talking about the United States government, the capitalist government. This is a Seattle University law professor giving a lecture at the NYU School of Law, talking about how they do not believe that the United States government is a legitimate institution. I'm just going to get a clip of that. We're just going to clip that shit right now. This is the second time we've gotten Dean Spade saying this in 2 days. How is it possible that Seattle, well, I mean, I know it's Seattle University, obviously. How is it possible this person is a law professor and they're literally talking about how they don't want the government to exist? Uh-oh, I'm having trouble with my clipping tool. It doesn't want to work. Uh-oh. Oh, it's working. No one touch anything. Clippy clip.
Of living under colonial governments tell us about that. Is the United States itself a legitimate means for organizing care and infrastructure? And if, as I believe it's not, are there other ways to organize care and infrastructure? How else have people done it? Especially people who've never been cared for but have had to live under the violence of this government, but also people throughout history, since states are pretty new. So how have people organized themselves to survive, not through governments? And another.
How have people organized themselves not to survive through governments? By that, they them means the capitalist government, the capitalist state. Just need to save that.
Question inside this is do we have to agree to do abolitionist work together? Can we work together even if you're trying to get your people elected to run the colonial state and I'm trying to smash the state? But we all hate prisons and jails. Could we still work together? And where's the rubber going to meet the road for us? That's a really interesting question. When does that difference matter and when does it not matter? Right? Because all organizing is based in recruiting new people who don't yet agree with you on everything and haven't yet grown all the solidarities you'll hope they grow.
Oh, yeah?
You may just not want this jail built this year. And I'm trying to convince you to hate all the jails ever. And that's cool. We can still work together on this. So where does this get hard? Right?
I'm sorry. I need to go back and make that clip again. I didn't realize that clip was going to continue to just get more and more amazing. I just didn't realize. So you guys get to listen to all that again. Congratulations. Sometimes the clip gets even better. You just don't see it coming. And then they just keep talking. Take 2.
We also, can they provide those services justly? What does the history of social welfare tell us about that? What does the history of living under colonial governments tell us about that? Is the United States itself a legitimate means for organizing care and infrastructure? And if, as I believe it's not, are there other ways to organize care and infrastructure? How else have people done it? Especially people who've never been cared for but have had to live under the violence of this government, but also people throughout history, since states are pretty new. So how have people organized themselves to survive, not through governments? And another question inside this is do we have to agree to do abolitionist work together? Can we work together even if you're trying to get your people elected to run the colonial state and I'm trying to smash the state? But we all hate prisons and jails. Could we still work together? And where's the rubber going to meet the road for us? That's a really interesting question. When does that difference matter and when does it not matter? Right? Because all organizing is based in recruiting new people who don't yet agree with you on everything and haven't yet grown all the solidarities you'll hope they grow. Like, you may just like not want this jail built this year, and I'm trying to convince you to hate all the jails ever, and that's cool. You know, we can still work together on this. So where does this get hard, right? So we're at this incendiary.
Okay, I want to just point something out. So I actually missed this the first time we watched that clip, so I'm really glad we watched it again. What Dean Spade just basically said is the difference between reformism and revolutionaries. So when it comes to the socialist left, there are two types of socialists. There are reformist socialists that want to work within the current system, that want to participate in elections, that want to win elections, that want to make small incremental changes once they get elected to office to push the country towards a post-capitalist society. Their goal is still a post-capitalist society. They want to overthrow capitalism. They just believe in reforming the current system by working within it to get to that post-capitalist society. This is the Democratic Socialists of America. This is also the Working Families Party. There are a lot of people who are, by the way, these are not Democrats, these are not liberals, these are not progressives. These are socialists. They want to overthrow the capitalist system. They just believe in working within elections to get there. Then you have revolutionary socialists. Dean Spade is a revolutionary socialist. Dean Spade does not believe in working within the system. Dean Spade does not believe in running in elections. Dean Spade does not believe in political parties. Dean Spade likely has not voted probably in a very long time. No, they didn't vote for Democrats. No, they didn't vote for Kamala. No, they never voted for Biden. These are communists. They do not support the Democratic Party any more than they support the Republican Party. Dean Spade is a revolutionary that wants to overthrow the government. What Dean Spade just said to this class at NYU Law School is essentially something to the effect of, listen, some of you guys want to work within the system and you want to recruit people and you want to get it elected to office. I, Dean Spade, a queer lawyer from Seattle, I just want to overthrow the state. I want to get rid of the state. I want to get rid of all prisons. Can we work together on issues where we agree while still disagreeing about this reformism versus revolutionary thing? Does everyone understand? It's important people understand these two strains of leftism. It's not like they're total enemies. They're not total enemies. They don't hate each other. They don't hate each other like they hate the Democrats. They hate the Democrats. They hate the liberals. But when it comes to like this reformist versus revolutionary thing, they'll work together when it makes sense. They don't agree, and they're still going to fight about whether or not they should even be running in elections. They're going to fight about whether or not running in elections is a form of treason to their cause. We have the Denver Communists on video talking about how Zoran Mandami is already a sellout for even running in elections in the first place. So they absolutely have intellectual disagreements about this. But there are times when they're kind of like, can we just work together here and there? And people need to you need to understand what you're looking at. You need to understand all the different groups that exist on the left, because if you're looking at how these groups behave, you have to understand essentially what their motivations are.
A moment, which I didn't know I'd live to see, which is cool, in which there's yet another legitimacy crisis for the system of criminalization. Those don't happen that often in the U.S. They happen in, because of big insurrectionary uprisings.
That's a good idea, Mad.
There's also, a huge, terrible counterinsurgency happening. But this is an important moment to know what we think about these very fundamental questions, and those conversations are hard because of that long history of repression. So defund campaigns are really amazing for a lot of reasons. They expose the immense cost of policing. Like, most people don't know that 40 to 50% of their state and city and county budgets are just spent on cops and courts and jail cells and whatnot. And they juxtapose that with the unmet needs of housing, transit, childcare, and healthcare. They delegitimize policing. They expose so many things about what policing actually is in your jurisdiction. And they mobilize a public debate about what actually makes us safe and what people really want. That's really wonderful. They also tend to expose, any city and county budget work exposes how totally disconnected city and county government is from the people who live there, how most of us don't have any relationship to that or know what's going on in the budget, how our cities and counties are run by chambers of commerce, police, and real estate interests. Finding that out more and making that a public problem is an important, I think, delegitimization of the state itself. The defund campaigns can be a good entry point for organizing. Like a lot of people who don't know if they're abolitionists or don't know what they think about whether they think there should be no cops might still be like, what, 50%? And people in my community don't have X or Y. You know, it's a good entry point for that conversation for people that directly affects you. It's like, this is happening in my own town. And I think they're one of the things that makes abolitionist politics material. Like abolitionism isn't just like the dream that someday there'll be no cops on the street. It's like, no, right now, like, let's not have this thing be the use of the resources. Similar to site fights, like when we're trying to get certain jails or prisons closed, or, you know, don't build this police station, or don't build that new detention center or whatever, or efforts to decriminalize stuff, you know, also very material, like let's not have this thing be criminalized, or efforts to get cops out of schools. Like all of these things are like immediate abolitionist inroads for new organizers, which is great. And they actually are pragmatic, right? Like they change the likelihood that you're going to be hurt by a cop if there's less cops out there, or if they don't have as much technology or whatever. And they create a space for people to build relationships and shared analysis that leads to, you know, more organizing and more solidarity. And I think that in some ways they can, you know, they obviously can be taken up by people who do think that it's possible to get abolitionist politicians elected and create governments that don't have police, borders, and prisons. I don't agree with that vision, but obviously tons of abolitionists think that that's what they're doing. I want to make a different argument, obviously. Mine is that capitalist, colonial, and racist governments cannot fundamentally be transformed by socialist or abolitionist politicians. Actually, they need half their budgets allocated to cops, courts, and cages, because that's the only way you can operate a system of illegitimate domination. Like, it's not like by accident that they spend all the money on the cops and cages and militaries. Like, you couldn't get us all to do this stuff and to live this way and to pay these rents and to go to these dangerous jobs and to breathe this poisonous air and drink this poisonous water unless you had a standing army of people to keep us in line. And that's what government looks like all over the world, so it seems really normal, but it should be really, like, shocking that they've created a system that requires that much enforcement, right? So, yeah, so I'm arguing.
What did I tell you earlier? When queer Marxist activist Dean Spade is talking about the state, they, them is talking about the United States government, the United States Constitution. They, them believes that the United States is built on capitalism. They believe the Constitution is a capitalist document. When they're talking about abolishing the police, defunding the police, it's because they believe the police, which also, by the way, includes the military and includes ICE. Everything they believe about the police also applies to ICE and the deportation stuff, and we'll talk about that in a second because I'm sure borders are about to come up, so we'll touch on that. But they believe the police only exists to protect the capitalist state and private property. And we'll rewind this until you guys can hear it again. When they're talking about capitalist, colonialist, racist, those are all different words for capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. They believe capitalism created slavery. Slavery created systemic racism. Thus, the system that upholds racism, systemic racism, is a reference to capitalism because capitalism is the system that upholds it. And the only way to get rid of the racist, colonized, whatever, is by overthrowing capitalism. And in this case, that means the capitalist U.S. government. Let me touch on the border thing really quick. Capitalism is defined by the left as private property ownership. What do you need to have private property? You need a border. Borders around your country, borders around your state, borders around your city, borders around your house. The left wants to eliminate all borders because they believe borders are the enforcement mechanism of capitalism. And so when you're talking about ICE and deportations, the reason the left is going after ICE is because ICE enforces the border. The border is a capitalist construct. It's exactly the same as the police. It's just a different unit in the military. They hate it for exactly the same reason. Yes, they do. They believe that if capitalism is abolished, there will be no crime because people are only committing crimes because of the oppression that is forced on them by capitalism. And when we get rid of capitalism and we give people everything they need, because getting rid of capitalism means giving everyone access to all of the resources, no more private property, no more private wealth, everything belongs to everyone. They believe that when they do that, there will be no more crime. And I have them on video saying that. Let's go back, listen to this again. This is also the difference, again, between reformism and revolution, because Dean Spade, again, does not believe the system can be reformed. They do not believe in working within the electoral system. They believe the system needs to be completely overthrown. Listen again.
And I think that in some ways they obviously can be taken up by people who do think that it's possible to get abolitionist politicians elected and create governments that don't have police, borders, and prisons. I don't agree with that vision, but obviously tons of abolitionists think that that's what they're doing. I want to make a different argument, obviously. Mine is that capitalist, colonial, and racist governments cannot fundamentally be transformed by socialist or abolitionist politicians. Actually, they need half their budgets allocated to cops, courts, and cages, because that's the only way you can operate a system of illegitimate domination. Like, it's not like by accident that they spend all the money on the cops and cages and militaries. Like, you couldn't get us all to do this stuff and to live this way and to pay these rents and to go to these dangerous jobs and to breathe this poisonous air and drink this poisonous water unless you had a standing army of people to keep us in line. And that's what government looks like all over the world, so it seems really normal, but it should be really, like, shocking that they've created a system that requires that much enforcement, right? So I'm arguing that prisons, police, militaries, and borders, something a lot of people can agree we should get rid of in the conversation I'm having, and soon everyone, are actually co-constitutive with the state form. They're not something that's optional in the state form. Like, you wouldn't have a country if you didn't have a border and a cage and a set of racialized others you put in it. I think that it's, and that the authority of the state cannot actually be maintained without those things. And so I want to get rid of the authority of the state. But I came here because I want to get rid of those things. And then I figured out, after being an abolitionist and a feminist and trans person, all this stuff, that I was like, oh my God, I'm an anarchist. That's the order it happened for me.
When they say anarchists, they don't actually mean the elimination of all states, though. Listen, there are different types of anarchists. I, in my heart of hearts, am an anarcho-capitalist. I believe in the complete elimination of the government, but I want to maintain private property, and I want to maintain private property with guns and voluntarism and all that sort of stuff. In my ideal world, of course, that is a utopia of its own kind. I'm also very realistic and pragmatic in that I know that that's probably not going to work out, but that's what I want at the end of the day. When Dean Spade says that they are an anarchist, they don't mean an anarcho-capitalist like me. They mean an anarcho-communist. Anarcho-capitalism and anarcho-communism are two completely different things, and the main difference is this. Anarcho-capitalists believe in private property ownership. Anarcho-communists do not. And so when Dean Spade is talking about being an anarchist, they're talking about being an anarcho-communist in which there will be a governance model. We have them on video talking about this. They're not talking about there being no governance. They're not talking about there being no state. They're talking about the elimination of the United States government so that they can implement their own form of governance, because you cannot have a communistic community without having some sort of governance model and shared responsibility and decision making and stuff like that. Because in his communist society, no one owns land, no one owns houses, no one has access to food other than what the community gives them. No one has access to energy other than what the community gives them. So there still has to be a form of governance. The state still exists. It's just a different form of a state.
It could happen to you tonight. Recently, there was an episode of The Dig on which Gio Mar and Miriam Kaba were talking about abolition. And Miriam Kaba described the state function as the capacity to protect and redistribute. Like, if that's what states do, if you make it really simple, they protect and redistribute. And what I would say is that contemporary states protect private property relations. That's what they protect, which make it possible for a small elite to extract the most possible from the people on the planet. It's an extractive, what they're protecting is an extractive set of relations. And what they redistribute is wealth upward.
The state is the protector of private property. The definition of capitalism is private property. When he's talking about the state, he's talking about the capitalist state that protects private property. Hey, thanks, Nomero. You do good at parsing this out in ways that make it easier to understand. I hope I do. I hope I do on a good day. Thank you for that.
They protect and redistribute. And what I would say is that contemporary states protect private property relations. That's what they protect, which make it possible for a small elite to extract the most possible from the people on the planet. It's an extractive, what they're protecting is an extractive set of relations. And what they redistribute is wealth upward. The entire time we've been alive, wealth has been further redistributed upwards. I don't know if you've seen these like videos on YouTube that show you like wealth is like they show you like U.S. wealth distribution and how much worse it's gotten in our lifetimes. But if you look at the global one,
Soul Quest, dogs do rule. I've been getting all these ads in my Instagram for have you guys seen those services where like, oh god. Have you guys seen those services where they'll take pictures of your dog and they'll make you like a stuffed animal version of your dog? I've been getting all these ads in my Instagram for that. And I'm like so close. I'm like, I really want that. Like, I really do. But I also don't know if it'll make me more upset, if it would actually be like comforting or whatever. But thank you, Soul Quest. I appreciate it.
wealth distribution globally has gotten much, much more concentrated since the ostensible end of colonialism. Just think about that, how effective neoliberal economic policies are, that they've actually, like, wealth distribution is just like in our lifetimes on every level, globally and locally, right? To really think about, that's what the state form is for. It's not something that you use to correct that. That's my take on this. Okay, so, and then what it does is these institutions concentrate wealth and then protect that concentration from attacks by people from whom it was extracted. People who'd be like, stop doing this and we want our land back. We want to not work under these conditions. We want, to not pay rent to anyone ever again. So a lot of people on the left believe that states could become caregiving and could redistribute money downward. Like that's the fantasy, the socialist fantasy. It's like, oh, but we can have, Bernie will be president and the things will flow the other way. I always want to just ask whether those people are actually like anti-capitalist and anti-imperialist. You always want to ask that question. What demonstrates that? Anyway, but one thing a lot of people on the left think, and I think this happens a lot to for people in law school. I teach administrative law, right? So one of the things people on the left think is that we need more government regulation. So the right is against government regulation, and we're for government regulation, and that's going to protect us from pollution and poisoning and labor abuses and whatnot and environmental harm. But in reality, what regulation does, government regulations just establish how much each industry can exploit, poison, and pollute you, while insulating bosses, landlords, and industry from liability and preventing us from stopping these harms and establishing different social relations. So for example, workers' compensation benefits, right? What they are established to do, is not to protect workers from being harmed at work. They're to establish a limit on how much redress workers can seek after they are harmed by the dangerous as possible conditions created by bosses.
Natalie, you didn't have to do that. Thank you, Natalie. I appreciate it. Oh, God. I did not expect to be crying. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. You guys don't have to give me money just because I'm sad about my dog, okay? Like, you don't have to do that. It's fine, but I appreciate it.
Get the most possible wealth out of you. Like, they're the cap on what you can get, right? Another example of this that always stands out for me is the law passed in California, AB 1054, after the utility company PG&E caused the deadly Camp Fire in 2018. You remember that really big fire? And right away, the state passed a law limiting the liability of PG&E for the fire. So to allow PG&E, which is too big to fail, to continue its negligent operations, which will cause more fires, right? Like the state is there to protect industry and let it hurt us, right? More generally, I would say we have like a broad court system that regulates the relationships between landlords and tenants and workers and bosses in a way that's really about forcing tenants and workers to go through a fruitless set of processes run by elites, judges, and lawyers using individual claims and these rigged procedures where these wealthy judges determine the outcomes and the landlords and bosses write the laws. Like, it's not, that system is not to have a place for us all to bring our claim. That system is to make sure we do our claims individually on conditions in which we'll lose, instead of doing collective action, right? Like, they have made most effective ways of striking for tenants or workers illegal and often criminalized, right? So these processes are not like the place we get redress. These processes are things that prevent redress, and they are always the thing that looks caring. Like, you know, landlord-tenant law is hand in hand with like the cops being like, no, you will be evicted now, right? You will be crushed if you try to do collective action about this. So housing rights and workers' rights regulations are designed to redirect people away from collective action and away from, you know, rural and urban land and factory takeovers, fighting cops, squatting. I don't know if people have read Vicky Osterweil's amazing book, In Defense of Looting. If I could make all law students read one book, it would be that.
If I could make all law students, you know, it was In Defense of Looting. I actually have read In Defense of Looting. I read In Defense of Looting when it came out. If you haven't read, and it was actually, you know what was funny about it? It was reading In Defense of Looting that made me understand that the left was not upset about white people, that the left was upset about property. Because that's what In Defense of Looting is about. In Defense of Looting came out during the Black Lives Matter riots in 2020, which these people call the George Floyd Uprising or the George Floyd Rebellion. And essentially, it's about this idea that black people have the right to loot things because of systemic racism, because they're taking back ownership of the property and blah, 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 whatever. If you understand that the left believes that capitalism created all racism by creating the institution of slavery, and that the institution of slavery created systemic racism is the system that upholds racism, which means capitalism, then you understand that racism to the left is really all about private property ownership, and In Defense of Looting was all about basically eliminating private property ownership and giving, you know, having, like, it's like basically a form of reparations, and that's why the looting occurs. But it's so funny that, again, Seattle University law professor speaking at NYU Law School is strongly recommending the students read In Defense of Looting, which is literally a book about the overthrow of capitalism.
So housing rights and workers' rights regulations are designed to redirect people away from collective action and away from, you know, rural and urban land and factory takeovers, fighting cops, squatting. I don't know if people have read Vicky Osterweil's amazing book, In Defense of Looting. If I could make all law students read one book, it would be that. Okay, there's a lot of books I put on the list. But anyway, it's really good. It's really simple, easy to read, clear, but like so brilliant. And she talked about these squadrons of people who would go around during the early 1930s and the Depression and stop evictions. Like, a lot of people would show up and stop evictions. They just go to your house when you're about to be evicted and like fill it up and not let the marshal do its thing. And they stopped 77,000 evictions in New York City in the early 30s. Like, it wasn't a few. You know, now we see like those things are kind of one-offs, but like, to think about the possibilities. And also what people in other periods, like, no wonder they had to create a New Deal, right? And the New Deal was about actually limiting and stopping all that stuff and creating like legit unions that would not wildcat strike. You know, it's all about actually tamping down people's capacity for more disruptive and effective struggle. Oh, go take your claim to housing court. Good luck with that, you know? So regulation is used to protect extraction and keep people subject to it. And as much of regulation, whenever we're in admin law and people think like, I'm pro-regulation because I'm left or I'm anti because I'm right, I'm like, what about immigration regulations? What about regulating people on welfare? Actually, like, so much of regulation is actually regulating people into criminality and exclusion. One more example I want to give, because this comes up a lot, you know, working with different people who are trying to do different kinds of mutual aid projects. Like, you run into this thing with like healthcare licensure and like other forms of like insurance schemes, things that actually stop you from doing your own project in your community to like provide people counseling or other kinds of health support, because actually there's all these rules that are supposed to be like for the quality of your experience of those things, but actually are about like an industry keeping its corner. So if you're like a licensed therapist and you join a mutual aid project and offer people counseling, you are more likely to be like dinged on your licensure. You know what I mean? Like, these things actually are about preventing mutual aid and the social relations we want. Anyway, the other left or liberal fantasy is that taxation will be the way that the state can redistribute wealth and reduce inequality. Of course, I think we all know that taxes are just used for military criminalization apparatuses and controlling people and facilitating extraction. That's like primarily what they're used for. They always bail out the banks, they never bail out the tenants, et cetera. We know this. The kind of state infrastructure projects that taxation pays for primarily protect and support white life and white property values and displace and poison non-elites. And the purpose of this stuff...
White there didn't mean white skin color. It meant elite. Did everyone hear that? It displaces white people, right? White property values. When they said white, they weren't talking about skin color. They were talking about the elite class. Listen again. That means the bourgeois. That means the capitalist, the ownership class.
About the tenants, et cetera. We know this. The kind of state infrastructure projects that taxation pays for primarily protect and support white life and white property values and displace and poison non-elites. And the purpose of this stuff is to sustain the private property relations that make people and the planet exploitable, make almost everything in our lives happen for profit, and prevent people from meeting our...
It's all about private property. It's not actually about skin color. It's all about private property, which is what the left's definition of capitalism is. You don't say.
They always bail out the banks, they never bail out the tenants, et cetera. We know this. The kind of state infrastructure projects that taxation pays for primarily protect and support white life and white property values and displace and poison non-elites.
Elite.
And the purpose of this stuff is to sustain the private property relations that make people and the planet exploitable, make almost everything in our lives happen for profit, and prevent people from meeting our own needs. So the fantasy that...
All right. Well, thanks for letting me know you did power chat. Usually I don't have I need to get better about turning power chat on, to be honest. I don't have it set up where it displays over the screen. I just set it up because it was a way people wanted to be able to donate, but I can pull up the power chat real quick. And I apologize for that. I should have had it up. I don't get many power chats, but I do get some. So thank you for letting me know you donated through there. Just give me a minute to get into the power chat. Hang on. Hang on. Let's see. Yo! Another $100. Thank you. In remembrance of my dog, Puka. I'm sorry about your dog as well. Oh my gosh. You guys are so generous. Thank you so much for the power chat. I really do appreciate it. God. Animals, man. Animals. God, love them. How else can you do it? Well, you could do a super chat. You could do what? Power chat's fine. Power chat is fine. I just have to read it out. It just like, isn't that better than a computer reading it out? I read out your power chat, man, and I do appreciate it. Thank you so much. You guys are so generous. I really do appreciate you all. And like the thing of it is like I feel weird taking money because I'm sad that my dog died, but at the same time, I was talking about this the other day on the internet. Like I was talking about this in reference to like Sarah Stock, like was talking about like getting donations for her wedding on the internet or whatever, because she's getting all this shit over having a small engagement ring, even though it's a really beautiful engagement ring and all that stuff. And I said to her, I was like, listen, people give money on the internet as a way of showing their love. It's like the way that we have. And it's like, so I know it's not about, you know, I sometimes get shit from like the ridiculous people who stalk me and hate me. They're like, Karlyn is saying she's upset about her dog so that people send her super chats. Well, no, that's not actually what's going on. It's that I'm actually upset about my dog. And I have people that I know love me and support me who also understand what it's like to lose a pet, and they're showing their love. And I appreciate it. You don't have to do it though, but I appreciate it.
Taxation can be used like to make our lives better. It's like it's the other way. Taxation's regress. I mean, it's obviously been used to create the very things that we all are suffering from, like the border and the prison. When governments appear to redistribute wealth downward, because there are moments they're like, oh hey, have a COVID check, you know, it's because it's a temporary concession to quell dissent and try to stabilize the status quo. You know, there's so much of that history we can talk about more if you want to. And of course, governments they're functioning as designed, and that includes some level of flexibility and responsiveness. So sometimes they do grant concessions, or sometimes it looks like something that's good for poor people for a minute. But it's completely in their control to revoke that, to make it conditional, to exclude certain people, like undocumented people being excluded from COVID relief, et cetera. You know, I come to this as a poverty lawyer, and I'm in the context of the U.S., so I'm mainly talking about the U.S. here, although I do think that these observations could be thought about more broadly. Feminist, anti-racist, and disability justice movements in the U.S. and elsewhere have consistently shown that care programs, like things from the state that are supposed to be care, whether we're talking about the family policing system, aka child welfare, or social services, or income support, or disability benefits, are designed to police and punish marginalized groups and sort people into hierarchies of deservingness that justify stigma, abandonment, and premature death, right? Like, these things are not designed to make us all well. They're designed to exclude certain people, to make certain groups of workers excluded, to make people excluded. They're heavily racialized, heavily gendered.
Yeah.
And care systems often expand when we have uprisings. Like, the response will be some level of care system expansion. So, after the Great Depression, you get an expansion in certain kinds of social welfare. But again, it's primarily for white, primarily benefits white men, like literally, in terms of who gets more benefits. And then it recedes. Oh my God, the COVID relief where they gave money to businesses and hoped they'd give it to you, the worker. That was the wildest ever. The utter unwillingness to directly give people money is so outrageous because you can't be trusted, And then all of that just disappears into the ether. And the most forgiven loans. Just wild, right? That stuff is limited. It's conditional. And it's revocable, right? And so it's just a response to get you to try to quell the uprising, and it always excludes the most stigmatized people. And feminists and disability justice activists have so much tried to ask us all to look out for these care-based and softer systems, right? I hope you've all read the book Prison by Any Other Name. That was such a useful intervention on this in the last couple of years that shows how electronic home monitoring and the family policing system and treatment, mental health treatment are all extensions of the prison, or looked at, there's so much work on this. Obviously the work of Dorothy Roberts on the family policing system is pivotal. But hopefully that makes us really suspicious of the idea of a caregiving state, because these care mechanisms are just other forms of prisons. What are New York City shelters like? They're jails. They're just jails by another name. Okay. Group homes, etc. Another piece of this, so that's, my piece looking at U.S. history and just being why would I think that a genocidal colonial state built in chattel slavery could become caring? Why would that seem like the place to go for care? How has it looked when they've cared? But I think we can also have a deeper conversation about, and some of the people whose work I rely on for thinking about this are people like Peter Kropotkin, Peter Gelderloos, Dilar Dirac, and Modiba Kadali, and others, who ask some larger questions about how did we even get states? How did states develop? That's really fascinating question to be how did we become organized this new way that is pretty pervasive globally? There's a lot of, that's mostly what people are living under. And one of the things, when I summarize in this incredibly quick and dirty way, what I see them saying is that states are created when an elite conquers a territory, draws borders, invents internal and external enemies through racialization and gendering processes that invent populations that need to be cultivated and those that need to be abandoned or killed, right? So creating the fantasy of the immigrant, the all the racial categories, all the disability categories, et cetera, that tell you who's a monster, who's a drain, who's a threat, all of that, internally and externally. And then legitimize its practices that basically make it so that you're ruled by people you don't know. What a state is people you don't know are setting the terms of your life. That's what it is, And I don't think that could ever be done well, Creating states requires preventing people from accessing our own collective capacities to reproduce our lives and survive together. And we need to be rerouted through systems designed to benefit elite interests. This is also another way of saying what capitalism does. These things, they merge together, right? So capitalism is you need housing, you got to get it from the landlord. You need food, you got to get it through this brutal fossil fuel-based food system, et cetera. That's the state and capitalism, white supremacy, colonialism, all together, a beautiful braid that produces this utter dependency, right?
The state and capitalism and white supremacy and colonialism are basically all the same thing. Is that what you just said, Dean Spade?
The landlord. You need food, you got to get it through this brutal fossil fuel-based food system, et cetera.
Let's even go back a little bit more. That was even a great clip.
Creating states requires preventing people from accessing our own collective capacities to reproduce our lives and survive together, and we need to be rerouted through systems designed to benefit elite interests. This is also like another way of saying what capitalism does. These things, they emerge together, right? So capitalism is like, you need housing, you got to get it from the landlord. You need food, you got to get it through this brutal fossil fuel-based food system, you know, et cetera. Like that's, like the state and capitalism, white supremacy, colonialism, all together, a beautiful braid that produces this utter dependency, right? And we can see this today. Obviously, we're all in a forced participation in a for-profit wage economy to meet our basic needs. And we're coerced into depending on the criminal punishment system for safety, even though we know it doesn't provide that. And supporting like everything we need, like healthcare or whatever, is to profit somebody. Like we can't just get what we need. And we can't come up with it ourselves because like I'm not allowed to like produce medicines and give them to you. And you can see this right now, trans people are being criminalized for trying to distribute medicines to each other. And that's not new. It's taken a really long time to create these arrangements that are so endangering to our lives and to the future of human life. And people have resisted it all along. And studying people's resistance to state rule is such a helpful thing to do at all, because also it's hard to even see it. Sometimes, like we're so used to it, so pervasive in our lives. What resistance movements want is collective self-determination. We want to decide for ourselves. Like that's what we want. We want to be able to say, we don't want the energy that comes through into our lives to be from fracking or fossil fuels, right? And like right now, we don't have any say in that. You just like can pay for the energy or not, you know? We don't want an education that's focused on making us into law enforcement, which is what law school is. We don't want any new prisons, any new dams, any new mines, any new pipelines, borders, right? We don't want to be taxed for wars and cops. Too bad. Right now, if you are criminalized if you don't accept those conditions. And also you can't survive, right? It's very, very hard to eke out of survival. Although it's very important to look at like people squatting and people looting and stealing and all the ways in which people have.
Hey, Tate, and thanks for the super chat. My question to you is, why do the students tend to soak up all this in and fully support it without challenging it? Tate, and what makes you think that students have ever been taught how to think? What makes you think that students have ever been encouraged to question things? Does school teach students to question things at all, or does school teach students to take what the teacher says and believe it as the truth? We train students, we train kids from the time they're 5 years old. Go to school, stand in line, don't speak up, don't question authority, don't question your teacher. If you question the teacher, you're probably going to get a little punishment. Your parents are going to get a phone call if you do anything that's out of line. So at what point have we ever taught students to question anything that people in positions of authority say? So why would you expect that when they go to college, they're suddenly going to start questioning things? We train them their entire childhood through the public schooling system to keep their mouths shut and to only give the answer that's in the textbook and to never question what the teacher says and to listen to the teacher. You train them this since they're toddlers. They don't just suddenly go off to college and change the rules, right? So this is a teacher. The students are taking in what the students have been primed for this, by the way. The students have been learning all this woke leftist shit in schools for years too. The students have been learning this woke leftist shit since they were 5 years old as well. This is taught in public schools where we've told them not to question things. So why would they suddenly go to college and start questioning everything? They're literally doing what they have been trained to do their entire life.
And continue to resist that. But for the most part, most people are pretty hooked in, right? More and more, I'd say, right? Rents are higher than they've ever been, ever. You know, there's more cops than ever, there's higher rents than ever, like, it's not a coincidence. And, like, we're at, like, you know, this ecological collapse moment. It's pretty deep. I'm just saying there's no chance that the solutions to all this is going to be coming from the thing that facilitates it all, right? This question about whether it matters. Can we work together even if I'm anti-state and you want to be part of the state and we're both abolitionists? I think that, we do all the time. And one thing I like about this debate that's currently happening among abolitionists is that it's pretty friendly. And, you know, like, I feel like a lot of people, we're having very sincere conversations about it. Like, it's, to me, in my corner. It feels like people are like, oh, let's really dig into this in a generative way, because we've been collaborating together for decades, right? But I think there's kind of like, it's like up to a point we can like collaborate across this difference. Like we can be doing these anti-expansion, dismantling campaigns, supporting criminalized people, building mutual aid projects. But there are some potential rubs, right? There's like the moment where we debate how much time and resource should be given to electoral campaigns. Like that's a place where the rubber meets the road. We live in a society that tells you that's what politics is. So people get really pulled into electoral stuff. Even people who are like a little suspicious of it, like it's just so much of the oxygen in the room. Like maybe the answer will come. I live in a place where we have a social city council member. Let me tell you, we build jails like none other, you know? Just saying, it's like, doesn't really, I haven't seen it like work out. Enough for me to say I want to put my time into that. You know what I mean? And where we had a really amazing uprising and then all of our abolitionist candidates for city attorney.
See, again, the Dean Spade is talking about the whole reformist versus revolutionary thing, making it very clear. I'm not wasting time on the electoral system. I've seen the electoral system build more jails. Maria, Proverbs, train up a child to live the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Yeah, ain't it the truth? Ain't it the truth? All right, guys, we're going to watch this for about another 15 more minutes. We won't get through this entire thing, but we'll get through most of it. We are, as a reminder, we are going to be switching over to Spy Stream. Actually, we'll probably watch another 10 minutes or so. We are going to be switching over to Spy Stream, where we are going to be going inside a live leftist training tonight. We're going to be going inside the organizing call for the teachers' unions. Make sure you stick around for that. It's going to be a different stream. It's not going to be on. I'm going to end this stream. We're going to start a new one. But make sure you've mounted the like button for this stream. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And let's watch as much as we can until we have to wrap up.
And city council and stuff all lost, and we got actually like a Giuliani-style scene right now in Seattle, you know? So anyway, so that's one of the places where we might like have a rub. Also, we might just feel different amounts of faith in the invest part. Like I engage in the defund work, and in that work, I'm happy to say all the talking points about how outrageous it is that.
Bro, who the fuck do you think you're talking to? Who the fuck do you think you're talking to? You're like an old man shouting at the sky. Do me a favor. Why don't you go up and talk to a socialist sometime and say, excuse me, socialist, do you know that if there is no capitalism, there'll be no innovation? And just see what happens. But for right now, we do not debunk them. And you know that because you've been around this channel long enough to know that. Like, there's no point in this. Why are you debunking them? Who the fuck do you think you're talking to? Do you think that the internet answers? No, you're not talking to us. We're not fucking communists. You're not talking to us. You're talking to hear yourself talk, to make yourself feel morally superior. You're not changing anyone's mind, bro. Do you really think we've never heard that before? Do you think you're the first person ever in the 5 years I've been doing this to come on this channel and go, excuse me, sir, do you know if there's no capitalism, there'll be no innovation? Do you think you're saying something original that we've never heard? The socialists and communists can't hear you. We don't give a fuck. Listen to what they're saying and learn.
Our city and county money is going to the jails and the cops and not in the courts, and not to the things people in Seattle and King County actually need. But I don't actually have any faith that like if the city put it towards housing, it wouldn't just like evaporate into sketchy nonprofits and like weird other capitalist I mean, come on, like it's, so like how much faith do we have in that part, and therefore what we kind of where we put our time around that is like a question. We might take up the invest work to some degree as an experiment to see like what we can get as short-term concessions, but just like without a lot of faith that we're like building a new life where the city of Seattle, the colonial city of Seattle, like is going to give us the good life and everyone's going to be housed. That's not that. If everyone was housed, we wouldn't have to go to work at their terrible jobs. So they're never going to just do that, like because we come up with like a good report or whatever, or like a convincing testimony to city council hearing. I still do constantly testify because you just try everything, and it's an organizing moment really that's about us seeing each other, and there's a danger, right, that when we do the invest work, we're actually perpetuating the fantasy of a caregiving state, or maybe misdirecting efforts away from building autonomous survival infrastructure, because most people have never heard of that and don't know about that and aren't studying that, so how do we deal with the fact that like our imaginations are so populated with the pro-state stuff? And of course, just there's this deep wariness that hopefully we all have about nonprofitization when we imagine the outcomes of invest work, like our awareness that budget reallocations for survival needs will at best be funneled into nonprofits, which siphon for overhead expenses for basically elites usually, and distribute necessities in ways that perpetuate exclusions and stigma, and are limited by philanthropic control. If you haven't read the book, The Revolution Will Not Be Funded, edited by Insight, it's just incredibly useful, especially if you have any interest in like changing the world and you're in law school, you need to read that book. Right, so it's just like, yeah, they'll create a housing program that nobody who has a felony can be, nobody's undocumented, and nobody who has kids or who doesn't have kids, whatever, all of the usual things. So we can have a lot of disagreement also about like about movement and tactics. If we have this difference, that I think it matters. Often, but not always, those who are interested in seizing the state are more likely to limit dissent, and those who are interested in eliminating governments are more likely to endorse disobedience, disruption, and attack. It's like the way Vicky Osterweiler talks about it. She talks about how the labor movement, as it like legitimized and became like organized into official unions, was less likely to do like wildcat strikes and stuff, and more likely to think like, we'll save it for another day. We're like looking at this long-term horizon, where when people are just like fighting for it right now, and there's no one telling them wait for another day, you don't compromise in the same ways. I think that's an interesting point. Her stuff on labor is really interesting. Historically, disruption is what makes change, not negotiation.
Ha!
So,
Wow.
there's not a misunderstanding that has led to our oppression and domination. They know exactly what they're doing. Maybe not the individual city council members, but like the system knows what it's doing. So there's something really problematic about continuing to negotiate inside as if we can convince people. So I just want to give, my favorite part of this talk is this. I made this set of bullets. I'm like, how is abolitionism making, abolitionist analysis of the police and prison, what if we just applied that to the state? So these are the talking points. These are the bullets. What if as police and prisons are, so is the state. Built for domination, control, and extraction, not to keep us safe. Its purpose is domination, control, and extraction, not to keep us safe, just like the cops. It serves elite interests and masquerades as belonging to the people, just like the cops. It's actually working exactly as designed, so tinkering or fixing it is futile, just like the cops. Fantasies of it becoming caring prevent us from addressing its harms, just like the cops. People fear chaos, violence, and mayhem without it, just like the cops. Yet we know that it produces rather than prevents or addresses violence, and that shared practices of care and collective self-determination can better meet our needs than systems based in extraction and domination.
That means socialism versus capitalism.
A lot of people fear that life without current forms of government will be horrible, and they're really afraid that our projects can't be to scale. This is probably the question I got the most after I wrote Mutual Aid. It's like, but none of this can be to scale. They're worried about disasters. They're like, who will make the vaccine? Who will save us from disasters? First of all, I just want to say that to scale thing, we need to reimagine scale, obviously. It's decentralized resistance. If we're all doing a zillion mutual aid projects and we're able to experiment and make them cool and share what we learned and do them in a way that makes sense for our particular community and our language with our cultural norms or our region, that's actually way better than the state form, which is having centralized things that are distributed across all of Washington State or across the whole U.S., right, that are irrelevant, right, i.e. FEMA, i.e. COVID response. How's it working out with disasters? You know what I mean? How did it work out when they paid all the drug companies to make vaccines? We all paid for that, but we can't get the vaccines everywhere in the world. People need them. We would have made those vaccines without that system of profit getting in the way of its distribution. I believe people will always make vaccines. I believe scientists want to actually produce medicines. That's why they're in it, not to make drug companies rich. The idea that this is the best way to deal with disaster when this is creating all of the worst disasters feels outrageous to me. But that is a very common response I get to people talking about this conversation.
All right. Sadly, we need to wrap this up. And so we are going to be able to listen to the rest of this today. Maybe we'll listen to the rest of it another day, or maybe we'll do it later or something. But we do have to wrap up, guys, and I'm really sorry, but we are on a schedule. And we're on a schedule because we have a spy stream we're going to be starting in, around about 5 minutes or so. And so we're going inside a live organizing call with the teachers unions tonight. And so the rest of Dean Spade's talk at NYU is just going to have to wait for the time being. It's a couple months old anyway, so it's okay. So I want to encourage everyone, come and join us over on the Spy stream. We are going to be shutting this stream down because I do like to keep these separate for sharing purposes. I'm going to be shutting this one down. Come and join us on the Spy stream. Go inside a live organizing call with the Teachers Union. Randy Weingarten is going to be speaking tonight. The head of the AFL-CIO is going to be speaking tonight. They are planning a big protest on Labor Day. This is the same coalition that was part of the May Day protests. They're also were part of the No Kings protests and stuff like that. The teachers unions are doing a lot of organizing, and we want to know what they're talking about, and we want to know what they're doing because, you know, this is coming out of the unions. The unions are organizing all of the protesting that's going on, and so we can hear from for ourselves directly what they have to say about it. So what's going to happen is I'm going to shut this stream down, and we're going to go do that one. But I appreciate everyone coming out today, and I hope you join us over for Spy Stream. If you don't, I'll be live at 5 p.m. tomorrow. I go live Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. every day. We're doing happy hour tomorrow. I will have beer. We'll watch something fun. It'll be great. But for right now, I take my leave, and I'll be back in a couple minutes. See you guys then.
How are you feeling?
Well,
How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
To give you some idea.
I am not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that?
People dislike me because I am not completely like them. I am trying to do with my life something which few people try to do, and this influences my thinking and consequently my action.
What is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for the people.
I'm not clear How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.